What do you do when life doesn't make sense? Why trust God when everything around you seems to fall apart? And how do you respond when God is doing something in your life that you just don't understand? When Jesus knelt to wash Peter's feet, demonstrating the kind of servant leadership he calls us to, Peter resisted. "No, Lord," he said, "you shall never wash my feet." But Jesus replied in John chapter 13, verse 7, "You do not understand now what I am doing, but later you will understand." That moment captures what so many of us experience. God begins working in ways that defy our understanding. But God does not need our permission or our full comprehension to carry out His will. That's where faith comes in. That's where He invites us to trust. Think of it like this. If I'm hitchhiking east and Jesus picks me up and drives west, I may not know the destination, but I trust the driver. When you trust Jesus, the way, you don't need to understand the whole route. Trust over understanding. There are going to be times in your life when absolutely nothing makes sense. But Proverbs chapter 3, verses 5 or 6 tells us what to do in those moments. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge Him, and He shall direct your paths. Don't lean on your own understanding. That's hard for us. But Isaiah chapter 55, verses 8 and 9 reminds us, "For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, declares the Lord. As the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts." How high are the heavens above the earth? We can't measure that. And that's the point. There are things only God can understand. Just because it doesn't make sense to you, doesn't mean it doesn't make sense. And just because it doesn't make sense now, doesn't mean it won't someday, when God's plan is a mystery. Maybe you're in a season where God has asked you to do something that feels completely illogical. Maybe you've said, "God, this can't be for me." But hear this, you don't have to understand in order to obey. A lack of understanding is never an excuse for a lack of obedience. Some of us have delayed our purpose because we've been trying to figure God out. We analyze every move, try to fit His will into our limited logic, but you can't always make sense of God. Stop trying to explain Him, start trusting Him. You might be praying, "God, show me your plan." And when He opens the door for step one, you hesitate. Why? Because you want the whole plan before taking the first step. But faith doesn't work that way. Obedience precedes clarity. Trust and obey, even when it doesn't make sense. That's where peace lives. That's where joy is born. Eventually, you stop needing all the answers, because you know the one who leads, and that's enough. God sees the big picture. Isaiah 55:9 says it again, "As the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways." You see, the moment God sees eternity, you see confusion, He sees completion. You see brokenness, He sees breakthrough. So when you say, "God, this doesn't make sense," He replies, "I am God," and that is the answer. It takes humility to say, "God, I don't understand what you're doing, but I trust you. I trust your character. I trust that you are good." Know His character. If you know someone's heart, you trust them, even when you don't understand their actions. And if we can do that with people, how much more can we trust God? The real question in moments of confusion isn't, "What is God doing?" The real question is, "Do I know Him?" Because if you know His character, His goodness, His justice, His mercy, you can rest, even in mystery. Abraham said it best in Genesis 18:25. "Shall not the judge of all the earth do what is right? Yes, he will." When life seems unfair, sometimes we're faced with unfair circumstances. Two people pray for healing, one recovers, the other doesn't. Two couples pray for a child, one conceives, the other doesn't. We label it fair, unfair. And when the unfair things happen to us, it's even harder to understand. But here's the truth, there are things we will not fully understand this side of heaven. This is not a cop-out, it's reality. Trying to explain every painful event can lead to confusion and even greater pain. Sometimes the most faithful thing you can say is, "God, I don't get this, but I trust you." Even in the Psalms, we see raw honesty, lament, frustration, even anger, and God welcomes it. He's big enough to handle your emotions. But he also calls you to trust him, not your feelings. Perspective, like a bird. Imagine a bird looking at the person who built her a birdhouse. She can't understand why he puts seed in the feeder, why he cleans the bird bath. But his care is real, even if her understanding is limited. We're like that bird. God's care for us is constant, even when we don't understand what he's doing. As J.B. Phillips said, if God were small enough to figure out, he wouldn't be big enough to worship. Remember, God is good. Psalm 100 verse 5 declares, "The Lord is good, his mercy is everlasting, and his truth endures to all generations." Satan's oldest lie is that God is not good. That's what he told Eve in the garden. God's holding out on you. It's the same lie we hear today. If God were good, he wouldn't have allowed this. But hear me, God is good, even when life isn't. He may delay, he may say no, but he will never leave you. One day he will straighten every crooked thing. If not in this life, then in the one to come. Faith holds on. Faith is holding on to God's promises when everything around you is falling apart. Even Jesus prayed a prayer that wasn't answered the way he hoped. In the garden, he cried out, "Father, if there's any other way," and the Father said no. Jesus wasn't spared from suffering, and neither are we. But he was never alone, and neither are we. That's the difference between the believer and the unbeliever. They cling to sinking sand, we cling to the rock. Your choice. So when life hurts, when nothing makes sense, you have a choice. You can get bitter or you can trust. You can say, "God, this is painful, but I know you're in control. You wouldn't have allowed it unless you had a purpose for it." You can say, "I don't understand, but I will wait." And when you face those why moments, don't let them destroy your faith. Let them deepen it. Life won't always give you simple explanations, but you can still say, "I don't like this. I don't understand this, but I trust you, God. You are on the throne and you care."